Previously, Fang Yuan claimed his inheritance and refined the white jade goo. Now, he takes control of his new assets, faces pressure from Fang Zheng and King Shu, strengthens his offense with the Moon Mangu, and shows the clan what happens when someone dares to cause trouble in his territory. Let us continue with Reverend Insanity, Episode 10. The tavern was not large, but its location was excellent. It stood on the eastern side of the mountain stronghold, right beside the eastern gate. Among all the gates of the Guyu stronghold, the eastern gate and northern gate saw the greatest flow of people. Because of that, whenever noon had passed or evening began to fall, business in the tavern was never bad. "Young master, please take a seat." An old man bowed low before Fang Yuan, his back bent in respectful submission. Several waiters hurried around wiping tables and benches. Their faces were full of ingratiating smiles, each one trying to appear more attentive than the last. Fang Yuan shook his head and did not sit down. Instead, he walked casually through the tavern, looking over everything around him. Inwardly, he thought, "This tavern is mine now." The tavern had only one floor, but beneath it there was an underground wine cellar. The floor was paved with green bricks. 8 square tables were arranged inside, 2 against the walls, while the other 6 stood in the open with 4 long benches around each one. The moment one entered the tavern, one could see a long, dark brown counter. Paper, brushes, ink, and an abacus were placed upon it. Behind the counter stood a wine cabinet filled with jars of all sizes. Some were large black clay jars, while others were bright porcelain bottles that caught the light. Fang Yuan walked as he pleased. Naturally, the old man and the waiters did not dare sit. They followed closely behind him with their heads lowered, nervous and silent. All of them were uneasy. The news that the tavern had changed owners had come far too suddenly. The former owner, Gu Yudong II, had always been crafty as a fox and harsh to the bone. Under him, they had been pressed so hard they could barely breathe. Yet the young man before them had actually taken this tavern from Gu Yudong II's hands. That alone was enough to make them understand that his methods were not simple. So when they looked at Fang Yuan, there was not only unease in their eyes but also fear. Fang Yuan suddenly stopped. "Not bad," he said. "But the shop is a little small." The old man hurried forward and bowed even lower. "Young master, it is like this. Every summer, we set up an awning outside the door and add a few more tables and chairs. But now the winter wind cuts to the bone. Even if we put up the awning, no one would sit outside, so it has already been taken down." Fang Yuan turned slightly and glanced at him. "You are the shopkeeper." The old man bent his waist even deeper and spoke with even more caution. "I would not dare claim that, young master. This tavern belongs to you. Whoever you appoint as shopkeeper is the shopkeeper." Fang Yuan nodded, then looked over the waiters. They all seemed sharp enough and capable of doing their work. If this had been Earth, he would have had to worry about the shopkeeper and waiters joining hands to deceive a young owner like him. But in this world, Gu masters stood high above mortals. Killing a mortal took only a thought. Even if his uncle and aunt tried to incite them, these ordinary people would absolutely not dare resist Fang Yuan. "Very well. Bring me the account books and make me a pot of tea." Fang Yuan sat down. "Yes, young master." The shopkeeper and waiters immediately fell into a flurry of movement. There were 16 account books in total. Each one was made from bamboo paper, pale green in color. When held in the hand, the pages were much stiffer and more brittle than ordinary paper, better suited to the damp climate of southern border. Fang Yuan casually took out a few volumes, skimmed several sections, and asked a few questions. The shopkeeper answered quickly. Before long, sweat had covered his forehead. In his previous life, Fang Yuan had founded the Blood-Winged Demon sect, with more than 100,000 followers beneath him. His experience was vast and his eyes were seasoned. Account books like these might dazzle others until they could no longer make sense of anything, but to him, every suspicious point stood out clearly, down to the smallest strand. This tavern ranked just behind the 9-leaf vitality grass as his second largest source of income. Naturally, Fang Yuan had to hold it firmly in his hands. The problems in these account books were not large. Most were only small mistakes. These mortals still did not dare act too boldly. However, when Fang Yuan turned to the final pages, he discovered that the income for this month had already been taken away by Gu Yudong too. Young master, the former master, came personally to take it. We lowly servants did not dare oppose him. As the shopkeeper replied, he wiped his sweat. His aged body trembled and his face was pale. Fang Yuan said nothing. He gently placed the account book on the table and glanced at the shopkeeper. In an instant, the shopkeeper felt a tremendous pressure descend upon him, as though a mountain had pressed down on his back. His soul nearly fled from his body. With a thud, he dropped to his knees. Seeing the shopkeeper kneel, the waiters immediately followed. All of them fell to the ground. Fang Yuan sat there calmly and swept his gaze over them. The waiters suddenly felt as though they had fallen into a world of ice and snow. Before Fang Yuan's bearing, they had no strength to resist. Every one of them held their breath and did not dare make a sound. For mortals like them, a job in this tavern was not only stable, but also safe. It was one of the best jobs they could hope for. None of them wanted to lose it. Seeing that the effect of establishing authority had already been achieved, Fang Yuan did not overdo it. Too much pressure would only spoil the result. He spoke slowly. What is past is past. I will not pursue it. I have read the accounts. Your wages are somewhat low. From now on, the waiter's wages will increase by 20%. The shopkeeper's wages will increase by 40%. Work well and you will have your share. After saying that, Fang Yuan stood and walked toward the door. The people kneeling on the floor were stunned for a moment before they finally understood what had just happened. Tears welled up and streamed down their faces. Thank you for your great kindness, young master. Young master is merciful and generous. We will definitely work with all our strengths. Young master, you are like our reborn parent. Please walk slowly. Behind him came voices trembling with emotion, along with the repeated sound of foreheads striking the green brick floor. Grace and authority together, reward and punishment together, no matter the world. This was the finest method for those above to control those below. And among them, authority was the foundation. Beneath overwhelming authority, even the smallest grace would be magnified 1,000-fold, 10,000-fold. If one gave kindness without authority, then one would only gain a rotten name. Over time, that kindness would no longer bring gratitude. Instead, it would draw out greed and invite disaster. But methods like these used to control others are only a minor path. On Earth, people might admire them, but here, raising one's own strength is the true great path. No, even on Earth, strength is still first. Fang Yuan could not help thinking of the Red Ancestor. Back then, after experiencing hardship and upheaval, Red Ancestor finally reached a conclusion. Political power grows from the barrel of a gun. This was the naked truth. The foundation of any ruling power was force. What people called authority was merely an attachment to it. In truth, it was not only authority. Wealth and beauty were also things that arose from strength. After leaving the tavern, Fang Yuan went to the 3 bamboo buildings. These 3 bamboo buildings had all been rented out by his uncle and aunt, and they were nearly full. This world placed great importance on having children. The population continued to grow, and the space inside the mountain stronghold had already begun to feel cramped. Within the clan, every family followed the system of the eldest son inheriting. As for other sons and daughters, they had to rely on themselves, many people. Even after receiving a small portion of family property through clan policy and struggling for years outside, still could not save enough in their entire life to buy a bamboo building of their own. First, raising Gu consumed far too many resources. Second, the space inside the stronghold was limited, so housing prices were extremely high. Of course, one could build a house outside the stronghold, but that was very dangerous. Wild beasts and poisonous snakes roamed outside, and they could break into homes at any time. In particular, whenever a beast tide swept through, no house outside the stronghold would be spared. Expanding the mountain stronghold was the only way to solve the problem. But once the stronghold expanded, there would be more places that needed defense. If a beast tide came, the current strength of the stronghold would not be enough to withstand it. And if the living area grew too large, Gu masters from other mountain strongholds might sneak in. Searching and guarding against them would become far more difficult. In the history of the Guyu stronghold, there had been several expansions, but all had been damaged by beast tides. After learning from those lessons, the current scale of the stronghold was already the largest it could safely maintain. Fang Yuan looked over the 3 buildings briefly, then asked around about the situation. Very soon he understood clearly. These 3 bamboo buildings had all been managed quite well by his uncle and aunt. The rent had also been adjusted to an optimal level. It was enough to simply continue operating them as they were. After making some calculations, Fang Yuan found that although the income from the 3 bamboo buildings did not surpass the tavern, it was not far behind either. The overall situation was much better than he had expected. Just the day before, he had still been a poor youth with nothing to his name, carrying fewer than 5 primeval stones. But now, in one leap, he had entered the ranks of the clan's minor wealthy. Some of the tenants in these rental rooms were impoverished female rank 2 Gu masters. After learning Fang Yuan's identity, the way they looked at him carried a clear trace of temptation. As long as they could attach themselves to Fang Yuan and marry him, from that day on they could live a stable life. They would no longer have to run about outside, risking death on missions. That sort of life was exactly what they had always pursued, what they had always struggled toward. In other words, if Fang Yuan was willing, he could immediately retire and live the same wealthy, comfortable life that his uncle had once enjoyed. With just a crooked finger, many female Gu masters would squeeze forward, eager to come to him. But none of this is what I want. Fang Yuan stood on the 2nd floor of a bamboo building. He ignored the heated gazes of the female Gu masters falling upon him. His brows were slightly furrowed, and one hand rested on the railing as he looked into the distance, far away. Mountain ranges stretched one after another, like a giant lying across the earth, using the gray-blue sky as a blanket while sleeping peacefully beneath it. 10,000 miles of rivers and mountains, the vastness of heaven and earth, when would he be able to roam freely across them? Clouds rolled, winds surged. Dragons and snakes would rise, when would he be able to look down upon all living beings? Since my rebirth, I have been like rootless duckweed, drifting along with the waves. Until now, I have spent all my effort, and this inheritance can finally be called a foundation. I can be considered to have established myself and gained a foothold. Next, I must excavate the flower wine traveler's inheritance, strengthen myself with firm resolve, cultivate to rank 3, and then wander the world. In Fang Yuan's deep black pupils, a flame seemed to burn. King Mao Mountain was only one mountain among the 100,000 mountains of Southern Border. And Southern Border itself was only one corner of the world. Too small, far too small. How could a place like this contain his blazing ambition, this small inheritance? Something others would fight over until their heads bled. Something they would think about day and night. Was no more than a speck of dust compared to Fang Yuan's ambition. Brother, come down. I have something to say to you. At some unknown time, Guyu Fang Zheng had arrived beneath the bamboo building. He lifted his head and shouted up at Fang Yuan, "What is it?" Fang Yuan's thoughts were interrupted, and he looked down coldly at Fang Zheng below. The 2 brothers looked at each other, neither speaking for a moment. His younger brother Fang Zheng stood below, swallowed by the shadow cast by another bamboo building. His raised face was frowning, and his eyes flashed with light. His elder brother Fang Yuan stood above, bathed in sunlight. Beneath his lowered eyelids, his black pupils were as dark as night. 2 identical faces were reflected in 2 identical pairs of eyes. Fang Yuan was not surprised by his brother's appearance. Fang Zheng was a sharp weapon being used by his uncle and aunt to fight over the inheritance. But even so, what of it? Fang Yuan stood high above and looked down at Fang Zheng. In his heart, he sighed faintly. So what if he has A-grade aptitude? In the end, he is still only a chess piece, truly insignificant. In the end, Fang Yuan did not go downstairs, and Fang Zheng did not come up. The stubbornness of both sides, the distance between the upper and lower floors, seemed to reflect the growing divide between the 2 brothers. Their conversation was not pleasant. Brother, you have gone too far. I never thought you were this kind of person. Fang Zheng stood below and shouted, his brows tightly drawn. Fang Yuan did not get angry, instead he smiled lightly. Oh. Then what kind of person am I, brother? Fang Zheng took a deep breath. After our parents died, uncle and aunt took us in, they raised us, they did us a great kindness. Yet you show no regard for old affection and repay kindness with resentment. Brother, is your heart made of iron and stone? By the time he reached the end, Fang Zheng's voice had already begun to tremble. How strange, Fang Yuan said calmly. These properties originally belonged to me. What is this so-called repaying kindness with resentment? Fang Zheng gritted his teeth, then nodded and admitted it. Yes, I know. These properties were left behind by our parents. But you still cannot take all of them. At least leave some for uncle and aunt to live out their old age. What you are doing chills the heart, it makes people despise you. After a brief pause, he continued. Have you even gone home to see what kind of life the two elders are living now? They have already dismissed more than half the servants. They cannot afford to support them anymore. Brother, how can you be so heartless? Fang Zheng's eyes were red, his fists clenched as he loudly questioned Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan could not help sneering. He knew very well that in all these years, his uncle and aunt had managed these properties and had certainly accumulated a great deal of wealth. Even if they had not, the final month's income from the tavern alone was enough to support several servants. The reason they cried poverty now was merely to stir Fang Zheng into coming here and making trouble. Fang Yuan looked at Fang Zheng and said directly, My dear little brother, if I insist on not returning anything, what do you plan to do? You are 16 as well, but do not forget you have already accepted those two as your parents. You have lost the right to inherit this property, I know. Fang Zheng's eyes burned brightly. That is why I came to challenge you to a gu duel. I want to send you a battle letter and decide victory and defeat on the fighting stage. If I win, then I ask you to return part of the inheritance to the two elders. A gu duel in this world was much like a martial contest in the Jianghu of Earth. When conflicts between clan members could not be reconciled, this method was used to settle them. There were many kinds of gu duels. One-on-one duels, two-on-two duels, literary duels, martial duels, and even life and death duels. Of course, if Fang Yuan and Fang Zheng were to duel, it would not be serious enough to become a life and death fight. Looking down at his younger brother's resolute appearance, Fang Yuan suddenly smiled. It seems uncle and aunt carefully instructed you before you came. But as someone already defeated by me, where does your confidence come from? Fang Zheng narrowed his eyes. He could not help remembering the humiliation from the fighting stage not long ago. Ever since that day, every time he recalled it, anger surged in his heart. There was anger toward Fang Yuan, and there was also anger toward himself. He hated himself for failing to live up to expectations. He had panicked during the battles. In truth, in that fight, his performance had been far below normal. Fang Yuan had overwhelmed him with momentum, and only at the final moment had he remembered to use Jade's skin goo. In the end, he had lost suddenly, miserably, and with deep unwillingness. That self-hatred within Fang Zheng turned into overwhelming reluctance. Because of that, one thought inevitably rose in his heart. If I could do it again, I would definitely perform well and defeat my brother. So when uncle and aunt cried bitterly before him, Fang Zheng did not only want to help them reclaim part of the inheritance. He also wanted to fight Fang Yuan once again, in front of everyone, and prove his own worth. Things are not the same as before, brother. Fang Zheng looked at Fang Yuan, battle intent burning in his eyes like fire. Last time my performance was poor, that is why you won. But this time, I have successfully refined a rank 2 gu worm moon raiment gu. You will not be able to break through my defense anymore. As soon as he finished speaking, a faint misty blue haze appeared around him. The mist enveloped him, then slowly condensed into a long floating sash. The sash wrapped once around his waist, then wound around both his arms. Its middle section floated behind his head, making Fang Zheng appear as though he carried a mysterious, almost immortal air. It really is moon raiment gu, truly foolish. He directly revealed his trump card like this. Standing above, Fang Yuan saw this scene and a light flashed through his eyes. Moon Raiment Gu was a rank 2 defensive Gu. In terms of defense, Moon Raiment Gu was somewhat inferior to White Jade Gu. However, it could also help defend others. In team combat, its contribution was considerable. With this gu, Fang Yuan truly could no longer shatter Fang Zheng's defense with two bare fists. Punching it would be like punching a thick layer of cotton. All explosive force would be dispersed. Even Moonlight Gu would not be enough unless he had Moonglow Gus. Therefore, if Fang Zheng truly issued a challenge and arranged a Gu duel with Fang Yuan, then according to clan rules, Fang Yuan would be forced to accept. And under circumstances where he could not reveal White Jade Gu, Fang Yuan might genuinely lose. After all, A-grade aptitude was still A-grade aptitude. On top of that, Fang Zheng was being carefully nurtured by the clan leader. He was growing very quickly. If Fang Yuan had once pressured Fang Zheng in the academy, then now he had to admit that Fang Zheng was gradually displaying the brilliance of a genius and was slowly becoming a threat to him. But did you really think I did not expect this? Fang Yuan looked at his brother below, the corner of his mouth slightly raised. He said to Fang Zheng, "My stubborn little brother, of course you may challenge me to a duel. But have you asked your team members for their opinions? If during the duel your team happens to need to leave the stronghold for a mission, what will you choose?" Fang Zheng was stunned at once. He truly had not thought of that. He had to admit that Fang Yuan's words made sense. A team naturally moved together. If a team member wanted to act alone, he needed to report beforehand. So you may as well go back first. Find your team leader Guyu King Shu and explain the situation. I will wait for you at the tavern by the eastern gate, Fang Yuan said. Fang Zheng hesitated briefly, then finally gritted his teeth. Brother, I will go right now. But I am telling you, delaying tactics will not help. Fang Zheng went to Guyu King Shu's residence. A servant led him inside. Guyu King Shu was practicing with his gu. His figure moved back and forth across the training ground in his courtyard, strong and agile. Green vine gu. He called out, and from the palm of his right hand grew a small green branch. The branch extended to 15 feet in length. King Shu gripped it in his hand like a whip and swung it, chopped with it, flicked it, and lashed with it. Paw, paw, paw. Whip shadows crisscrossed the air. The green vine struck the ground, cracking the stone slabs beneath it. Pine needle gu. He suddenly withdrew the vine and tossed his long green hair. In an instant, from his loose hair shot a dense rain of pine needles. The needles struck a wooden dummy not far away, piercing its entire body until it was covered in countless tiny holes. Moonwhirl gu. Immediately after, he raised his left hand. A green crescent mark in his palm suddenly shone with a gentle green light. King Shu waved his hand. A green moonblade flew out. Unlike the straight-line attack of an ordinary moonblade, this green moonblade had a stronger curve. As it flew through the air, it traced a winding arc, making it far harder for enemies to defend against. Senior King Shu truly deserves to be called the #1 rank 2 gu master of our mountain stronghold. Against an attack like this, I probably could not last even 10 breaths. He is too strong. Fang Zheng watched with wide eyes. For a moment he even forgot why he had come. Oh, Fang Zheng, why are you here? You only just finished a mission, so you should pay attention to rest. You must balance work and recovery. Guyu King Shu noticed Fang Zheng and stopped, smiling gently. Senior King Shu. Fang Zheng respectfully bowed. That respect came from the bottom of his heart. Ever since entering the team, Fang Zheng had been carefully looked after by King Shu. In Fang Zheng's eyes, King Shu was like an elder brother. Fang Zheng, it seems you came to find me for something. King Shu wiped the sweat from his forehead with a cloth and walked over with a smile. It is like this. Fang Zheng explained why he had come and told him the whole story. After King Shu listened, his brows lifted slightly. In truth, he had already heard quite a bit about Fang Yuan. Compared to Fang Zheng, he was even more interested in Fang Yuan. It would not hurt to meet him once. Thinking of this, Guyu King Shu nodded slightly. As it happens, I also have something I want to discuss with your brother. Since that is the case, we will go together. Fang Zheng was overjoyed. Thank you, senior. Haha, what are you thanking me for? We are on the same team. King Shu patted Fang Zheng on the shoulder. At once, Fang Zheng felt warmth flow through his heart, and the rims of his eyes reddened slightly. When the two arrived at the tavern entrance, a waiter had already come out early to welcome them and guide them inside. A square table beside the window had been laid with a few small dishes, 2 cups, and a jar of wine. Fang Yuan sat on one side. When he saw Guyu Qingshu, he smiled and gestured with his hand. Please sit. Guyu Qingshu nodded lightly to Fang Yuan and sat down. Then he said to Fang Zheng, go walk around somewhere for a while. I will speak with your brother alone. He was intelligent. Seeing only 2 wine cups, he understood that Fang Yuan wanted to speak with him alone. In truth, that was also what he intended. Fang Zheng gave a sound of acknowledgement. Though unwilling, he could only go outside. I understand you quite well, Fang Yuan, Qingshu said with a smile. As though he were an old acquaintance, he opened the wine jar, poured Fang Yuan a cup, and poured one for himself as well. You are very interesting. A clever person, then he lifted his cup toward Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan laughed softly and also raised his cup in response. The two drank at the same time, emptying their cups in one breath. Qingshu poured another cup for Fang Yuan and then another for himself. As he poured, he said, since I am speaking with a clever person, I will not beat around the bush. I will be direct. I want to buy your liquor worm. How much do you want for it? He did not ask whether Fang Yuan wanted to sell the liquor worm. He directly asked how much Fang Yuan wanted. That alone revealed strong confidence. He was the number 1 rank 2 Gu master. Young in age but already at rank 2 peak stage. Standing above high stage rank 2 Gu masters like Kai Shan and Mo Yan. The moment he arrived, he had turned himself from guest into host, pouring the wine and offering a toast to Fang Yuan, seizing the initiative. His confidence, combined with his warm smile, created a special presence. It was not overbearing and did not make people uncomfortable, but it made people clearly feel his steadiness. Winter sunlight shone through the window. His long green hair, pale face, and gentle features made Fang Yuan think of a beautiful spring scene. A truly outstanding person, what a pity. Fang Yuan sighed inwardly. He did not mind Qingshu seizing the host position. Instead, he felt a faint admiration. Like Fang Yuan and Fang Zheng, Guyu Qingshu was also an orphan. His parents had died in a wolf tide when he was still young. He had been personally raised by clan leader Guyu Bo. After his B-grade aptitude was discovered, Guyu Bo personally taught him. His aptitude was outstanding. Even among B-grade talents, he was excellent, almost worthy of being called a pseudo-A grade. Guyu Bo had always trained him as a candidate for the position of clan leader. Guyu Qingshu had a gentle and friendly personality. He was highly praised and welcomed by the clan members around him. He was also extremely loyal to the clan. Fang Zheng's appearance had cut off his hopes of inheriting the clan leader position. Yet he still willingly and wholeheartedly took care of Fang Zheng. If he had been on Earth, he would have been the kind of person like Yu Fei, Wei Zheng, or Bao Zheng. Unfortunately, during the wolf tide 1 year later, the northern gate would fall. To block the gap and protect his clan, he would bravely step forward. In the end, with only rank 2 cultivation, he would forcefully activate a rank 3 Gu worm. 1 man would guard the gate and thousands would be saved. He would successfully hold the stronghold. But because of this, his own aperture would be damaged, and in the end he would turn into a tree man and die. Because of that, Guyu Qingshu had left a rather deep impression on Fang Yuan. When Guyu Qingshu saw Fang Yuan sigh, naturally he did not think Fang Yuan was recalling his death. He thought Fang Yuan was troubled over the liquor worm. He smiled and said, I believe you already understand the limits of the liquor worm very well. That is right. The liquor worm is only a rank 1 Gu worm. It can refine only rank 1 green copper primeval essence. You are already a rank 2 Gu master now. The liquor worm can no longer refine your red steel primeval essence. Although you now have a tavern and can raise the liquor worm easily, what is the use of raising something that has no benefit to you? Then his tone changed. But although the liquor worm is useless to you, it is useful to rank 1 Gu masters. Especially during next spring's awakening ceremony, the clan will have a new group of students. The liquor worm would be of great help to them. So why not sell the liquor worm to the clan and make a contribution? Fang Yuan remained silent. Qingshu considered for a moment, guessing Fang Yuan's intention. I understand. You are reluctant to part with the liquor worm because you still want to fuse it, if I am not mistaken. You are probably thinking of following the refinement route of rank 2 white cocoon goo, and then rank 3 misty sweat butterfly. This recipe is the most widely circulated and also the most practical. Misty sweat butterfly is a fairly good goo worm, but white cocoon goo has no ability. For you, this refinement route does not have much value. You have C-grade aptitude and are now rank 2. White cocoon goo has no ability at all. It only consumes food and offers you no help. How likely are you to advance to rank 3? Even if you succeed, you will probably already be middle-aged by then. Do you really want to raise a useless white cocoon goo for more than 10 years? Instead of raising white cocoon goo, would it not be better to raise a different goo worm, one that is more practical and can help you more? The true value of the liquor worm lies in refining primeval essence and raising it by one small realm. If you refine it along that route, you will only be treating the liquor worm as material. Would that not be a pity? Every goo worm had only one ability. For example, Spring-Autumn Cicada was as high as rank 6, but it had only one ability, Rebirth. A newly refined goo worm usually preserved the ability of one goo worm and strengthened it. For example, White Jade goo preserved and strengthened the defensive ability of Jade Skin goo, while losing the strength-enhancing effect of White Boar goo. In other words, once one obtained White Jade goo, it would only help with defense. It would not increase the goo master's strength. King Shu's words were correct. The liquor worm's most valuable point was that it refined primeval essence and raised it by one small realm. For goo masters, this was like increasing their primeval essence reserve in another form. Moreover, it was also of great help in nourishing the aperture and advancing cultivation. If one followed the white cocoon goo and misty sweat butterfly route, the goo worms refined from it would no longer have the ability to refine primeval essence. That truly was a pity. In fact, the flower wine traveler had taken this route. After advancing the liquor worm into misty sweat butterfly, he carried it with him and used it many times to charm women and commit evil acts. But after he died, misty sweat butterfly no longer had enough food. It gradually degenerated and finally returned to being a liquor worm. Seeing that Fang Yuan still did not speak, King Shu's eyes flashed and he continued. Actually, our clan has obtained a recipe. According to this recipe, the liquor worm can be advanced into the rank 2 bewitching moon goo, and then into the rank 3 7 fragrance liquor worm. The 7 fragrance liquor worm also has the ability to refine primeval essence. Fang Yuan, if you do not want to sell the liquor worm, we can change the method of transaction. You sell the liquor worm to the clan. If the clan successfully refines the 7 fragrance liquor worm, you will have the right to use it for 5 years. If the refinement fails, the clan can also compensate you. What do you think? With this method, there was no doubt that all the risk of refinement would be transferred to the clan. Such favorable conditions would make almost anyone's heart pound with desire. But Fang Yuan only sneered inwardly. He knew himself very well. With his C-grade aptitude of 44%, advancing to rank 3 was almost impossible. In his previous life, Fang Yuan had been stuck there for over 100 years. Only by a fortunate coincidence had he later obtained a goo worm that raised aptitude, allowing him to become a rank 3 goo master. 5 years of usage right sounded wonderful, but for Fang Yuan, it was like flowers reflected in mist or the moon reflected on water. Guyu King Shu said this because he had seen that Fang Yuan had ambition to reach rank 3 and deliberately threw out this bait to lure him. But from the very beginning, he had miscalculated. In Fang Yuan's memories, there was an optimal refinement recipe for the liquor worm. First, advance it to the rank 2 4 flavors liquor worm. Then advance it again to the rank 3 7 fragrance liquor worm. Whether 4 flavors liquor worm or 7 fragrance liquor worm, both possess the ability to refine primeval essence. However, refining the 4 flavors liquor worm was not easy. First, the refinement required 2 liquor worms, and Fang Yuan currently had only 1. Second, the refinement required 4 fine wines, each corresponding to one of 4 flavors: sour, sweet, bitter, and spicy. Setting aside the liquor worm, which could not be bought even with money, the 4 wines alone were troublesome. Spicy wine was the easiest to find. Ordinary white wine was usually spicy. Sour wine could be bayberry wine, and grape wine also carried sourness. For sweet wine, glutinous rice wine was suitable. But bitter wine required careful thought. As far as Fang Yuan knew, there was a type of green bitter wine brewed from wormwood in AI Clan Village. Unfortunately, AI Clan Village was tens of thousands of miles away. How could he obtain it now? The liquor worm had remained in Fang Yuan's hands not because he was waiting for a higher price, nor because he wanted to sell it for more. It was because from the very beginning, Fang Yuan had intended to follow this refinement route. If he changed to another route, the liquor worm would truly be wasted. How could Guyu King Shu possibly know what Fang Yuan was thinking? Seeing that Fang Yuan still refused to nod, King Shu finally played his decisive card. Fang Yuan, if you sell the liquor worm, I can help mediate the relationship between you and Fang Zheng. At the very least, I will not allow him to challenge you under the name of the inheritance. You know clan rules. Once a battle letter is issued, the challenge must be accepted. Even if the higher-ups do not approve the request for a Gu duel, the challenge must still be accepted first. Even if you know you will lose and choose not to go on stage directly admitting defeat, you still have to accept the challenge. This world revered martial strength. The clan did not need cowards. Once a battle letter appeared, a Gu master had to accept it. Accepting proved that one was not a coward. Even if one admitted defeat before everyone, that was still considered an act of courage. This was a value formed naturally under the pressure of a cruel environment. And the clan's higher-ups would judge based on the result of the Gu duel, and use it to resolve problems and disputes. Of course, the premise of a Gu duel was that there had to be a reason. The challenger had to have justifiable grounds, the matter had to be reasonable, or both sides had to agree to a wager. Only then would the Gu duel be approved. Fang Zheng's request for a Gu duel is reasonable and justified. It will most likely be approved. If that happens, no matter the result, win or lose, the elders will make the judgment. Between you and Fang Zheng, who do you think the elders will favor? King Shu's smile deepened. His bright eyes fixed on Fang Yuan as he continued to apply pressure. Fang Yuan, if you win, you only have to return a small portion of the inheritance. But if you sell the liquor worm to the clan, that is a contribution to the clan. The clan will remember you. I can guarantee here that Fang Zheng will not use the inheritance as a reason to challenge you again. The implication behind his words was that Fang Zheng would still seek a Gu duel with Fang Yuan, only under a different reason. That was also something Guyu King Shu and Guyu Bo were very happy to see. They naturally hoped Fang Zheng could defeat Fang Yuan, disperse the shadow in his heart, and rebuild his confidence. Fang Yuan suddenly smiled. From the beginning until now, he had only listened to Guyu King Shu's long persuasion. Only now did he finally speak. If we fight, do you think I will lose? Fang Yuan asked King Shu. King Shu also smiled and replied, a fight is naturally full of variables. No one can predict it perfectly. But I should remind you of one thing. Fang Zheng has successfully refined the rank 2 Moon Raiment Gu. Your advantage may not be large, ha ha ha. Fang Yuan shook his head and his smile grew wider. I will lose, I will definitely lose. King Shu was stunned. Fang Yuan stared into his eyes and continued, not only will I will lose very miserably. I will hand over all the inheritance left by my parents. From then on, I will wander the streets of the mountain stronghold as a beggar. You. Guyu King Shu was a clever person. He immediately understood what Fang Yuan truly meant. His expression changed at once. The confidence he had maintained vanished, and his face became extremely solemn. Fang Yuan's words were a naked threat. Fang Zheng was being nurtured as a future clan leader. If news spread that he had accepted others as parents, then relied on his cultivation and aptitude to bully his elder brother and seize the inheritance, Fang Zheng's reputation would suffer a devastating blow. Even on Earth, someone who did such a thing would be looked down upon and cursed as shameless. Not to mention in this world, where the concept of family and blood relations had been raised to an entirely new height. If Fang Zheng were a demonic villain, then it would not matter. But he wanted to become clan leader, the head of the righteous path. He had to maintain morality, compassion, and kinship. For a moment, Guyu Qingshu stared at Fang Yuan in shock. He discovered that although he already understood Fang Yuan quite well, he had still underestimated him. The advantage he had painstakingly built with every sentence since arriving collapsed completely at that moment. Fang Yuan's sharp words had struck directly at Guyu Qingshu's vital point. If it had been someone else, Fang Yuan would have used a different method. But Guyu Qingshu was extremely loyal to the clan. In his previous life, he had even sacrificed himself to protect it. Because of that, Fang Yuan's threat was enough to make him cautious. But very soon, Qingshu calmed down. His eyes stared tightly at Fang Yuan and he said through gritted teeth, "But you will not do that. Because the inheritance has always been your goal. If you give up that inheritance, how will you cultivate?" Fang Yuan met Qingshu's gaze without the slightest fear, the corner of his mouth raised in a smile. "That is why I trust that you will also give up the idea of buying the liquor worm, and at the same time persuade Fang Zheng not to challenge me. Is that not so? If it were someone else, they might not be able to convince Fang Zheng. But Guyu Qingshu had that ability." Fang Yuan had no doubt about this. For a time, the situation entered a deadlock. After a while, Guyu Qingshu took the initiative to look away, lowering his eyelids. He stared at the wine cup in his hand for a long time, then suddenly laughed. "Interesting, then let us do it this way." His words carried a trace of frustration. One day later, on his bed, Fang Yuan sat cross-legged. About an arm's length in front of his face, a huge ball of white light quietly floated in the air. Fang Yuan reached into a money pouch, took out primeval stone after primeval stone, and continuously threw them into the ball of light. The light slowly shrank, but at the same time it grew brighter and brighter. When it had shrunk to the size of a fist, the white light became so dazzling that Fang Yuan could only narrow his eyes to observe it. This should be the final stone. Fang Yuan gripped the primeval stone in his hand, knowing inwardly that the crucial moment had arrived. He placed the primeval stone into the light. The primeval stone could be seen floating inside the ball of light. It was like snow and ice falling into boiling water, constantly dissolving. Large amounts of stone powder fell down. The entire primeval stone vanished. The ball of light suddenly exploded. With a muffled sound, 3 goo worms flew in 3 different directions. One fell onto the bed, while the other 2 struck the wall and then dropped to the floor. The refinement of Moonglow goo had failed. Fang Yuan's heart sank. He hurriedly hooked his finger and summoned the goo worms back. Moonlight goo and One Little Light goo swayed unsteadily as they floated toward him and slowly landed in his hand. But the other Little Light goo did not respond. It lay silently on the floor, its milky white 5-pointed star body gradually fading into the air. After a few breaths, it completely disappeared, leaving no trace behind. This was the price of a failed refinement. Depending on the refinement recipe, the goo worms could be injured, or if one was unlucky, they could die outright. Even with Fang Yuan's rich experience, his ability to divide his mind and a correct recipe, there was still a possibility of failure. Fang Yuan was not discouraged. He had encountered this kind of thing many times. He had already done his best. Since the result was failure, it could only be blamed on luck. Fortunately, it was not Moonlight goo that died. If a Little Light goo dies, I can simply buy another from the shop and replace it. That is easy. But if Moonlight goo disappeared, it would not be so easy to replace. Now that he had a great deal of money, the loss of one Little Light goo only meant buying another one. Next, Fang Yuan examined Moonlight goo and the remaining Little Light goo. The surfaces of both goo worms were slightly dim. This was a sign of failed refinement, showing that the goo worms had been injured. Once a goo worm is injured, the success rate of refinement will decrease. It is better to wait for these 2 goo worms to recover before continuing the refinement. Fang Yuan understood that haste made waste. He put the 2 goo worms away. Cultivation had not ended. Fang Yuan opened his left hand. On his pale left palm, there was a green grass-shaped mark. It looked like a dark green tattoo. Fang Yuan moved his thoughts, and primeval essence within his aperture was mobilized. Like a faint red mist, it flowed down his arm and into the mark. The green mark immediately came alive. A stalk sprouted from Fang Yuan's palm, followed by 9 round leaves of rich green. Finally, a translucent jade green stem emerged. As for the grass roots that resembled ginseng roots, they did not appear. The dark green tattoo on his hand vanished, leaving only dark green patterns that symbolized grass roots, interweaving with the lines of Fang Yuan's palm. This was the rank 2 grass goo, 9-leaf vitality grass. At this moment, Fang Yuan's hand was like a patch of soil, and the 9-leaf vitality grass grew upon it like an exquisite jade carving. Fang Yuan used the fingers of his right hand to pluck the leaves one by one. Every time he plucked a round leaf, Fang Yuan felt a faint pain, similar to the feeling of having a strand of hair pulled out. He casually placed the 9 leaves he plucked onto the bed. The 9-leaf vitality grass in his palm was left with only a bare stem. Fang Yuan continued to activate his primeval essence. Rank 2 pale red primeval essence rose continuously from his palm like mist, wrapping around the green stem. The stem continuously absorbed the primeval essence. Then from its lowest section, a new bud slowly emerged. This bud was light green, tender and tiny, extremely fragile. It looked as if it would shatter with the slightest touch. Fang Yuan continued urging his primeval essence and the bud gradually lengthened. Its color also deepened. In the end, it became a complete leaf, dark green in color. It consumed 20% of my primeval essence. Fang Yuan inspected his aperture and reached this conclusion. His primeval C only reached 44% of his aperture. This meant he could only continuously create 2 vitality leaves. After urging another leaf to grow, Fang Yuan held a primeval stone and rapidly restored the primeval essence in his aperture. When the primeval C rose back to 44%, he continued creating vitality leaves. Repeating this cycle again and again, after half a day, he once more caused the 9-leaf vitality grass to be covered with 9 leaves. This time he did not pluck the leaves. With a thought, he caused the 9-leaf vitality grass to shrink back into his left palm, turning into a green mark again. He placed the 9 vitality leaves he had plucked into a small pouch and carried it with him. Every vitality leaf was a rank 1 goo worm. On the market, each leaf was worth 50 primeval stones. In other words, these 9 leaf-shaped goo worms alone could bring Fang Yuan 450 primeval stones. Of course, Fang Yuan also spent resources to create them. But even after deducting the cost, he could still earn more than 400 primeval stones in profit. Among all the inheritance, if the most truly valuable thing was not this 9-leaf vitality grass, then what else could it be? Possessing it was no different from possessing a gold mine. Moreover, 9-leaf vitality grass had another advantage: it was easy to raise. It could survive with only water and sunlight, so the cost of raising it was not high. For Fang Yuan, the other properties could all be given up, but this 9-leaf vitality grass had to be held firmly in his hands. Of course, this kind of 9-leaf vitality grass goo was not possessed by Fang Yuan alone. There were several other people in the mountain stronghold who possessed this goo. In fact, there were 5 9-leaf vitality grass goo that belonged collectively to the clan. Every day, specialized logistics goo masters carried out missions to activate them in rotation and produce large amounts of vitality leaves. For Fang Yuan, this was a good thing. If he alone had 9-leaf vitality grass, the clan would certainly have acted to buy this grass goo. Just like how Gu Yu King Shu had represented the clan in coming to buy his liquor worm. Rare goo worms such as the liquor worm, black and white boar goo, and 9-leaf vitality grass were all things the clan's upper ranks wanted to hold in their own hands to serve the clan as a whole. 3 days later, under Fang Yuan's focused gaze, the ball of light suddenly burst, and a completely new goo worm floated in the air. It was clear and crystalline, curved like a crescent moon, like a piece of blue glass. Simply put, it looked like moonlight goo enlarged by 2 times, but it was not moonlight goo. It was a higher rank goo, rank 2 Moonglow goo. This time, Fang Yuan had succeeded. Moonglow goo was refined from 1 moonlight goo and 2 little light goo. 1 little light goo could double the attack power of a moonblade. 2 little light goo still only doubled it. This kind of enhancement could not stack. But once refined into the rank 2 Moonglow goo, the attacking power became 3 times greater than moonlight goo. In truth, there were many recipes for refining moonlight goo, and there were many advancement routes. The route Fang Yuan followed maximized the attack power of the Moonblade. The attack range of the Moonblade remained 10 steps and did not increase. One route fused Moonlight Goo with Silverstone Goo to create Moon Silver Goo. Its attack power remained unchanged, but its attack range doubled, reaching 20 steps. Another common route fused Moonlight Goo with Whirlwind Goo to create Moonwhirl Goo. When used, the Moonblade turned from blue to green, and its attack method changed from straight to curved. Guyu King Shu followed this route. As for Guyu Fang Zheng, he fused Moonlight Goo with Jade Skin Goo to create Moon Raiment Goo. This was a relatively rare route, and at its highest it could be advanced to rank 5, reaching the Treasure Moonlight King Goo. However, having a rank 5 recipe did not mean one could definitely refine a rank 5 Goo worm. Many rank 5 Goo masters did not even possess a single rank 5 Goo worm. The greatest reason behind this awkward situation was not a lack of materials, but success rate. Goo refinement did not have a 100% success rate. The higher the rank of the Goo being refined, the lower the chance of success. In his previous life, when Fang Yuan refined Spring Autumn Cicada, the success rate was not even 1%. He failed countless times. Sometimes, if he was lucky, only a few Goo worms died. When unlucky, all the Goo worms were destroyed. To refine the rank 6 Spring Autumn Cicada, all the materials required were rank 5 Goo worms. If those Goo worms died, then everything Fang Yuan had painstakingly gathered before would flow away like water and vanish like foam. Fang Yuan failed again and again. He had to start over again and again, refine again and again, gather Goo worms and special materials again and again. In the end, the commotion became too great. Public resentment rose, hearts scattered, and corpses lay in seas of blood. It could be considered luck that he finally succeeded in the refinement and obtained Spring Autumn Cicada. But the moment he obtained that rank 6 Goo worm, it had already drawn covetous eyes. The righteous path surrounded and attacked him. Before the treasure in his hand even grew warm, he had been forced to self-detonate for countless years. It was precisely this cruel chance of failure that caused innumerable high-rank Goo masters to fail at the final step and be beaten back to their original state. There was only one method that could partially restrain this failure rate. That was the Vital Goo. Whether the refinement succeeded or failed, a Goo master's Vital Goo would never die. At most, it would be injured. Why was this so? Many people speculated that it might be because the Vital Goo was the first Goo worm of a Goo master, with its life connected to the Goo master, forming a mysterious and profound life bond. As long as the Goo master remained alive, the Vital Goo would at most be left on the verge of death after a failed refinement. Of course, other Goo worms refined together with the Vital Goo could still die. Even so, a portion of the Goo master's foundation would be preserved, allowing him to continue accumulating from there. The Vital Goo was the greatest support and asset of a Goo master. What the Vital Goo was would greatly affect the Goo master's direction of development. At the same time, Goo masters would actively search for and discover recipes to raise the rank of their Vital Goo. Some low-rank rank 2 or rank 3 recipes could, in turn, limit the future of the Goo master. When Fang Yuan discovered that Spring Autumn Cicada had become his Vital Goo, why had he been so happy? This was the reason. Spring Autumn Cicada was an extremely rare Goo worm. It could allow a person to be reborn. Its ability defied the heavens. No matter how it was refined, it would not perish. If Spring Autumn Cicada in this life had not been his Vital Goo, then if he refined it further, there would be a risk that it would vanish. Spring Autumn Cicada was as high as rank 6, already an achievement far beyond the reach of most Goo masters. Many Goo masters did not even have a rank 6 recipe and were still bitterly searching for one. Although Spring Autumn Cicada could not presently show its true effect, it was still his greatest treasure. Compared to it, the Flower Wine Traveler's inheritance was simply as different as heaven and earth. The frozen stream once again began to flow with a gentle sound. Icicles beneath the eaves of bamboo buildings, and frost gathered on leaves melted drop by drop under the sunlight. Early in the morning, the tavern was somewhat quiet. There were not many customers. Fang Yuan sat inside by the window. Following his request, wooden screens had been set around the area, creating a private space. A gentle breeze blew in from outside the window, carrying the fresh scent of grass and flowers, making one feel relaxed. Xianxia sat opposite Fang Yuan, a smile plastered across his face. These are the primeval stones for this time, please inspect them. He placed 4 bulging money pouches on the table and pushed them toward Fang Yuan. Naturally, the pouches were filled with primeval stones. Fang Yuan did not open them one by one. He only placed them in his hand and weighed them briefly. In his previous life, he had conducted business for nearly 100 years. How many primeval stones there were in a pouch, he only needed to weigh it in his hand to know. If even one stone was missing, he could immediately notice. This ability was not anything special on Earth. There were old oil sellers who could place a coin over the mouth of a bottle and pour oil through the hole in the center without spilling a single drop. There were master archers who could shoot leaves from 100 steps away and hit the target every time. There were old butchers who had worked for many years and could tell the exact weight of a cut of meat by weighing it in their hands. With no difference after it was placed on a scale, how was such skill trained? Nothing more than familiarity through long practice. Sometimes, accumulated experience could build something like a miracle. After rebirth, this feeling in his hands, gained from experience, remained. Fang Yuan weighed the pouches and found no problem. Then he took a money pouch from his chest and handed it back to Xianxia. Xianxia hurriedly received it with both hands, opened the pouch and carefully counted. Although Fang Yuan possessed 9 leaf vitality grass, he did not sell the leaves directly himself. If it had been Gu Yudong too, he would have wished to do so personally, using it to maintain social connections and strengthen his influence. But Fang Yuan did not want that. It wasted too much time and energy. So he sold all the vitality leaves to Xianxia. As the owner of a shop, Xianxia would sell these rank 1 healing grass goo to others. Xianxia was Jianghe's younger brother. Fang Yuan had met him while searching for the liquor worm. And his elder brother Jianghe was, to some extent, half an ally of Fang Yuan. Therefore, allowing Xianxia to act as the seller was relatively safe and reliable. 1, 2, 3, 9, exactly 9 vitality leaves. No mistake, Xianxia counted 3 times before tying the pouch shut and carefully placing it beside himself. Then he lifted his wine cup and toasted Fang Yuan. Lord Fang Yuan, happy cooperation, I offer you a cup. The way he looked at Fang Yuan contained hidden envy, which had even become a trace of jealousy. A year ago, also in spring, Xianxia had seen Fang Yuan for the first time. Back then, Fang Yuan had still been a student in the academy, not even qualified to wear the martial uniform of a Gu master. But today, Fang Yuan not only wore the martial uniform. Around his waist was a red belt with a square iron plate set in the center. He was already a rank 2 Gu master. And Xianxia remained only rank 1, still wearing a green belt. That alone was one thing. But what made Xianxia's eyes redden even more was that after Fang Yuan obtained the inheritance, he had leapt from a poor youth into a wealthy man. The tavern, the bamboo buildings, and the 9 leaf vitality grass he possessed were all wealth that Xianxia could not earn even if he spent his entire life struggling. However, Xianxia did not dare reveal this jealousy. Fang Yuan sold vitality leaves to him, and he earned the price difference through resale. Fang Yuan had now become his money master. Xianxia did not dare offend the younger man before him. Comparing people to people can anger one to death. Xianxia lifted his cup, his face wearing a bright smile while his heart sighed. Fang Yuan also lifted his cup and drank it in one breath. Xianxia's expression was not obvious, but Fang Yuan had lived long enough to be shrewd. How could he fail to notice it? Fang Yuan did not care. If Xianxia were not jealous, that would mean he had a broad mind and great ambition, and Fang Yuan might even think slightly more highly of him. But the way he looked at Fang Yuan now with red-eyed envy already showed how narrow his character was. Drinking with him was only because he still had some value to be used. Xianxia put down his wine cup and said excitedly, "Within the clan, each vitality leaf can sell for 55 primeval stones. After following your instructions, we sold each one for only 50 stones, and indeed, demand exceeded supply. Lord, why not create a few more vitality leaves every day? If so, we can earn even more." Fang Yuan heard this and slowly shook his head, firmly refusing. No. Creating 9 vitality leaves is already my limit. It wastes too much of my cultivation time. This was the difference between Fang Yuan and common people like Xianxia. In Fang Yuan's eyes, primeval stones were merely cultivation resources tools. Everything served cultivation. But Xianxia treated primeval stones as the goal of life. Cultivation, to him, existed in order to earn even more primeval stones. Even if Fang Yuan created only 9 vitality leaves a day, and earned more than 400 primeval stones daily. After accumulating them for the past few days, his wealth had already increased significantly. Seeing Fang Yuan refuse, Xianxia did not dare persuade him further. He could only smack his lips in regret, then attentively pour wine for Fang Yuan and after that pour a cup for himself. True enough, he sighed. With wealth like yours, why should you toil and exhaust yourself every day? In my opinion, my lord, why continue living in that old broken rented room? Why not move into a bamboo building, then marry a beautiful wife and hire 7 or 8 servants to attend to you? That kind of life would truly be perfect, tusk. Fang Yuan smiled and said nothing. How could sparrows and swallows understand the ambition of a swan? He turned his head and looked out the window. A bamboo building with snow gathered on its roof was immersed in glittering spring scenery. Farther away stood a willow tree, its tender green branches swaying gently in the light spring breeze. Fang Yuan's eyes seemed slightly unfocused as he thought of his current situation. After resolving the problem of Fang Zheng, the inheritance could be considered secure. White Jade Gu and Munglo Gu had both been successfully refined. It could be said that he now possessed both offense and defense. Next was refining the liquor worm. But the matter of the liquor worm was rather troublesome. To refine the 4 flavors liquor worm, he had to obtain a second liquor worm, as well as 4 fine wines corresponding to sour, spicy, bitter, and sweet. Most of those things were still without any clues. The liquor worm must be refined. Without it, my progress will slow by more than half. But to refine 4 flavors liquor worm, I must at least wait until the merchant caravan arrives. Through the merchant caravan, I can also deliberately reveal white Jade Gu. That way my battle strength can be openly displayed, and I will no longer need to act with my hands tied. Fang Yuan currently had Munglo Gu and white Jade Gu, combined with 500 years of battle experience. He already surpassed most rank 2 Gu masters. Team leaders with some reputation, such as Six Snake Jiao-san, would not be Fang Yuan's opponent in a one-on-one fight. But compared with first-rate figures like Kai Shan, Mo Yan, and King Shu, Fang Yuan was still lacking. First, his cultivation was insufficient. Fang Yuan was only rank 2 initial stage, while they were all high stage or even peak stage. Second, he did not have enough powerful Gu worms. Fang Yuan only had 2 Gu worms suitable for battle, while Kai Shan, Mo Yan, and King Shu had at least 3 each, as well as hidden trump cards. Among those of the same generation, Fang Zheng, Mo Bei, and Kai Cheng had all begun to reveal their talent as expected, especially Fang Zheng. After obtaining the rank 2 Moon Raiment Gu, he already possessed the strength to fight Fang Yuan. Moreover, as time passed, his cultivation would grow higher and higher, gradually leaving Fang Yuan behind. Unless Fang Yuan refined the 4 flavors liquor worm as soon as possible, he would not be able to keep pace with Fang Zheng in terms of cultivation speed. As for the higher level, rank 3 and rank 4 Gu masters, Fang Yuan could not even speak of fighting them evenly. Even preserving his life would be difficult, let alone challenging them across ranks. Challenging across ranks was truly difficult. Fang Yuan had no trump cards and he had no aptitude advantage. Even with rich combat experience without powerful Gu worms, experience alone could not show its advantage. Without rice, one could not cook a meal. If I can refine 4 flavors liquor worm, my cultivation speed will be fairly stable. But I still need to add several more Gu worms. I have white Jade Gu for defense, Munglo Gu for attack, 9-leaf vitality grass for healing. What I lack now are scouting and movement Gu worms. Once I obtain them and fill those gaps, my battle strength can increase by at least 3 times. Fang Yuan thought quietly. He did not need to slowly learn through trial and error. His rich life experience had already given him a precise understanding of his own position. At that moment, Xianxia's voice entered his ears. I heard that recently, it seems someone has been looking for trouble with you, my lord. They often cause disturbances at your rental bamboo buildings and tavern. Fang Yuan frowned slightly, his thoughts interrupted, but Xianxia was not wrong. Fang Yuan had already investigated clearly. This was his uncle Gu Yudong too, acting from behind the scenes. After being warned by Gu Yu King Shu, Dong Tu no longer dared use Fang Zheng to make trouble. But after a period of silence, he was still unwilling and resentful. So he used his network of relationships to hire some Gu masters to stir trouble for Fang Yuan everywhere. Business feared this kind of trouble the most. That was why Fang Yuan had recently been taking some time to come and inspect these places. Young master, someone has come to cause trouble again. At exactly that moment, a waiter entered with a frightened expression. Oh, Fang Yuan raised his brows. He had not expected to run into it personally today. Before Fang Yuan could act, Xianxia stood up eagerly. My lord, please do not rush, let me take a look first. He walked out from behind the screen only to return almost immediately. It is Gu Yu Manshi. Xianxia's face turned pale as he spoke in a low voice, his eyes revealing worry and fear. Gu Yu Manshi. Fang Yuan was always cautious in action, and he had already learned all the important information he needed. During this period, he had collected information on all rank 2 Gu masters in the clan, and had roughly memorized it. Gu Yu Manshi was indeed a rather famous Gu master. He specialized in defense, possessed great strength, and served as the leader of the Manshi team. In terms of reputation and status, he was even a step above Six Snake Jiao-san. Crash. Outside came the sound of a wine jar shattering on the floor. Then came a rough and arrogant voice. Pa, what kind of wine is this? It tastes like horse piss and you dare sell it to this grandpa, HMPH. Fang Yuan stood, his gaze turned cold. Seeing that Fang Yuan intended to go out, Xianxia hurriedly stopped him. Lord Fang Yuan, a hero does not take a loss right in front of his eyes. This Manshi is very strong. He is someone who once escaped alive from Bai Ningbing's hands. He absolutely cannot be underestimated. Treating failure as glory and using it to boast, what is there to fear from someone like that? Fang Yuan sneered. He placed a hand on Xianxia's shoulder and pressed him back down. You sit here and drink, my lord. Xianxia opened his mouth, still wanting to persuade him, but he met Fang Yuan's ice-cold gaze. That chill made his heart tremble. His throat locked up and he could say nothing. Helplessly, he allowed Fang Yuan to push him back into his seat. Fang Yuan then strode around the screen and entered the main hall. At the square table in the middle stood a rank 2 Gu master. One of his feet was planted on a long bench, while the other stepped on the tabletop. His body was somewhat short, but his waist and arms were thick and powerful. A dense black beard ran from his cheeks down to his chin, and his whole body gave off a fierce aura. On the ground nearby lay the broken pieces of the shattered wine jar. Most of the wine had already flowed down the gaps between the bricks and seeped into the earth. Only a little remained pooled on the green stone floor or gathered inside fragments of the jar. The old shopkeeper bowed his head even lower, trembling as he apologized. My lord, please do not be angry. If my lord is not satisfied with this jar of wine, then this little shop will provide our finest wine to you free of charge. HMPH. I do not want wine. Your wine is this hard to drink, yet you still dare open a tavern. Compensation, you must compensate me. This grandpa was in a fine mood, and now you people have ruined it. At the very least, you must pay 500 primeval stones. Manshi opened his mouth like a lion demanding tribute. This is already the 3rd time. It seems this tavern has offended someone, right? It is best not to drink here anymore. Go quickly, hurry. When Gu masters fight, mortals like us suffer. The surrounding people left their seats. Only a few Gu masters remained sitting calmly, but they too had begun discussing. I heard this tavern belongs to Fang Yuan. Who exactly has a problem with him? That young brat who lost both parents, inherited a fortune and became rich overnight. No wonder someone dislikes him, even I feel jealous, think about it. We risk our lives and work desperately just to build up this kind of wealth and live a stable life. That Fang Yuan is only a newcomer. On what basis does he get all this, exactly? Even if his ancestors left blessings for their descendants, times are different now. The clan's resources are limited. Once divided among everyone, each person gets only a little. On what basis does a C-grade brat like him get to enjoy so much wealth? Ridiculous. Could Manshi be trying to provoke him into a wager? If there really is a goo duel, maybe he can cut off a piece of that fat meat. Someone shook his head. Ha. Do you think the elders are fools? Another nodded. But it may not be impossible. Clan policy has always been there. Haven't you all understood it over the years? It secretly permits a certain degree of conflict between us. The strong should obtain more resources, should they not? If the weak cannot hold onto their property, then they might as well throw it away. All of this is for the strengthening of the entire clan. True, that makes sense, but let us watch first. The waters here are somewhat deep. I heard there is a retired senior standing behind Manshi. Someone lowered their voice as they spoke. Where do you think you are going? Everyone stand still. No one is allowed to leave. Standing on the table, Manshi suddenly shouted. The mortal drinkers had already reached the door, but they did not dare disobey a goo master. They immediately fell silent and stood there like frozen cicadas. Many passers-by also noticed the commotion inside and stopped before the doorway to watch. As expected, he is purely here to cause trouble. Fang Yuan looked at the scene with an indifferent expression, his eyes flashing coldly. Manshi discovered him. Shem, so you are Fang Yuan. Junior, you opened such a fine tavern only to cheat this grandpa of money. But seeing that you are a newcomer, I will give you a chance to apologize in public. That way no one will say that I, Manshi, used my status as a senior to bully a junior like you. Ha ha ha. Manshi laughed loudly a few times. As long as you apologize and bow once, this matter can end here. This grandpa keeps his word. My words are worth 9 tripods. He slapped his chest with a thudding sound, showing the bearing of a bold and magnanimous man. But naturally, his true intention could not be hidden from the goo masters watching. This move from Manshi is quite vicious. Exactly. If Fang Yuan truly apologizes, he will no longer be able to raise his head afterward. Everyone will come to step on him and bully him for being weak. But if he refuses to apologize, then he is disrespecting a senior, arrogant, and insolent. He will be isolated by everyone. Yes, he is caught between advance and retreat. Wait, what the hell? The goo masters were whispering among themselves, when suddenly one of them opened his mouth wide enough to swallow an egg. The other goo masters watching were not much better. Some stared so hard their eyes nearly popped out of their sockets. Some spat out the wine in their mouths with a PFFT. Some froze in shock like statues. They had originally been watching, waiting for a good show. But Fang Yuan not only satisfied their wish, he gave them a huge surprise. The young man directly raised his hand, and in an instant a moonblade flew out. Swish. This was a moonblade from Monglo Gu. The deep blue crescent flew through the air, as large as a basin. A square table in its path was sliced cleanly in half, as easily as cutting tofu. What? Manshi's laughter stopped abruptly. His pupils suddenly shrank as the moonblade grew larger and larger in his eyes. In that instant, the deep blue moonlight shone upon his face, illuminating every single hair of his beard with perfect clarity. The intense smell of death rushed straight at him. At that moment of crisis, Manshi lost his composure and shouted loudly, "Rock skin goo." Immediately, a layer of gray light appeared over his body. His skin bulged and grew outward, turning into stone. But before the stone skin could fully form, Fang Yuan's moonblade had already cruelly struck his chest. With a soft cutting sound, the stone skin cracked. A long wound instantly opened across Manshi's chest. Blood flowed in streams and gushed out. A severe pain struck his nerves. Manshi screamed in fear, his voice full of terror and disbelief. He had never expected Fang Yuan to attack directly without saying even a single word. He truly dared to attack. Inside the mountain stronghold, he directly used a goo worm against a clan member like himself. Not only Manshi, even the others watching were struck dumb, unable to believe it. What is this? Is this kid insane? He attacked to kill without saying a word. Is he not afraid that if he really kills Manshi, he will be arrested by the punishment hall and forced to pay with his life? Young people really are impulsive. Did you all see that moonblade just now? That was not moonlight goo, it was moonglow goo. I did not expect Fang Yuan to have successfully refined moonglow goo. Fang Yuan, what are you doing? Manshi stood on the table, his face fierce as he roared like thunder. The skin all over his body had fully grown into stone, thick and solid. The wound on his chest was also covered by stone skin, though large amounts of blood still flowed out. It was just no longer spurting like before. Fang Yuan's expression remained completely cold. He walked forward slowly, he did not speak. To be precise, he never opened his mouth. He answered Manshi with one action, another moonblade swish. The moonblade crossed the short distance and flew out. Manshi had no time to say more. He hurriedly raised both arms to protect his head and chest. Both his arms were covered in dark gray rock, as though carved from stone. They had become thick and strong. The moonblade cut into his arm, leaving a deep wound. Countless small stones burst outward. The force carried by the moonblade made Manshi's body lean backward. His entire body was covered in heavy stone, making his weight suddenly increase. At last, the table beneath him could not endure it any longer. With a crack, it completely collapsed. Manshi lost the support beneath his feet and fell to the floor, exposing a flaw in his defense. Fang Yuan walked slowly over. His gaze was cold as he seized that opening and fired another moonblade. The moonblade cut through the air, letting out a sharp whistling sound. Manshi panted and tried to stand, but the movement pulled at his wound. The intense pain made him unable to endure it, and with a thud he collapsed again. Fang Yuan approached unhurriedly. Manshi had lost a large amount of blood, his face was pale. He looked at Fang Yuan in fear. Fang Yuan's cold and slow footsteps continued drawing closer, bringing him tremendous pressure. Fang Yuan, you cannot kill me. If you kill me, the punishment hall will arrest you. Manshi dragged his legs backward. Blood from his body trailed across the floor, drawing a vivid path over the green bricks. The crowd was utterly silent. Everyone had been shocked by Fang Yuan's cold momentum. They held their breath and stared. No one thought Manshi was useless or lacking bearing. If they were in his place, they probably would not do any better. Fang Yuan walked up to Manshi, raised one foot, and viciously stepped onto the wound on his chest. Manshi immediately sucked in a breath from the pain. Fang Yuan ground his foot down. Manshi felt as though a wild boar had charged straight at him and was trampling over his body. He could not endure it and began to scream in pain. Even with the protection of thick stone skin, the wound on his chest was being forcefully crushed by Fang Yuan's foot, and blood surged out again. More importantly, Fang Yuan's right hand was still covered in deep blue moonlight, gathered but not released. That was the sign of a moonblade attack ready to fire. Manshi was terrified and did not dare move. You cannot kill me. He widened his eyes and shouted with difficulty. I will not kill you, Fang Yuan said, speaking for the first time since he had stepped out. His voice was very calm. In the silent tavern, it entered everyone's ears clearly, but I can cripple you. I can cut off one of your arms or one of your legs. According to clan rules, I will have to compensate you with a large number of primeval stones, and I will be imprisoned. But what about you? You will spend the rest of your life on a bed. Your injury will greatly reduce your battle strength. You will no longer be able to go out and carry out missions. Do you think you can endure a result like that? Fang Yuan looked down at Manshi from above and spoke slowly. That cold voice entered Manshi's ears, causing his heart to nearly stop. His entire body trembled. His mouth opened and he panted heavily. His mind grew even more chaotic. The weight of Fang Yuan's foot made him feel as though an enormous stone was pressing down on him, making it harder and harder to breathe. Damn it. If I had been on guard earlier, if I had not been caught unprepared and seriously injured at the start, how could this have happened? Manshi's thoughts suddenly stopped because his gaze had met Fang Yuan's eyes. He lay on the ground and looked up. Fang Yuan's eyelids were half lowered. His pitch-black pupils looked down upon him. What kind of eyes were those? If they had been filled with killing intent, man, she might not have been so afraid. But those eyes were filled with indifference. That indifference was arrogance toward reality, disdain for the world, trampling upon life, and the abandonment of rules. Those eyes, those eyes. The man she's widened pupils suddenly shrank. A memory from the deepest part of his heart emerged. It was the nightmare of his entire life. 2 years ago, under the moonlight in a bamboo forest, a white-clothed youth had also stepped on him like this. Damn it, damn it. If I had refined rock skin goo, how could you break through my defense? Death was already close, and he had roared in hysteria, full of unwillingness. Oh. If that is the case, then I will not kill you this time. The corner of the white-clothed youth's mouth had lifted, his expression full of amusement. After you return to your stronghold, cultivate properly. Refine rock skin goo and then fight me again, ha ha ha. I hope you can add a little more excitement to my life in the future. Immediately after, the youth lifted his foot and spared him. Man, she panted heavily, lying on the ground, never expecting such a sudden turn. He looked blankly up at the white-clothed youth. The youth lowered his eyes and looked at him as though looking at an ant. His voice was indifferent. Why are you not scramming yet, man? She trembled all over. He hurriedly got up and fled in a staggering run. That white-clothed youth was none other than Bai Ningbing, the #1 genius of Bai clan village. At that time he was still rank 2, yet he could already kill rank 3 elders. Man, she had escaped with his life from his hands, and from then on his reputation spread far. Over the past 2 years, Bai Ningbing's face had already become blurry in Man Shi's memory. The only thing he still remembered was those eyes. Eyes that looked down upon the secular world, indifferent to all things lofty and high above. Hiding in arrogance ordinary people could neither reach nor understand, and now, right inside his own mountain stronghold, he had seen those eyes again. At this moment, Man Shi's heart was filled with fear. His unwillingness and anger completely vanished. Not a trace of fighting spirit remained. The change in Man Shi's expression was all seen by Fang Yuan. The young man felt slightly surprised. He had not expected Man Shi to be this useless, but forget it. He was only a cowardly skin bag. Fang Yuan had already achieved his goal. He lifted his foot. You may scram. To Man Shi, those words sounded like music from heaven. His face pale, he scrambled and fled out of the tavern. The crowd was silent. Fang Yuan stood in place and looked around. The Gu masters watching, whether rank 1 or rank 2, all unconsciously avoided his gaze. The shopkeeper and waiters stared at him with both shock and worshipful excitement. Who would not want a powerful backers? Behind him, Xianxia stood with his eyes wide and mouth open. He had heard the commotion and rushed out, only to see Fang Yuan driving Guyu Manshi away. That was Guyu Manshi. He was stunned beyond words. The way he looked at Fang Yuan had completely changed. His jealousy was gone. At this moment, Xianxia suddenly understood why Fang Yuan had achieved so much. The reason I cannot compare to him is because he and I are not the same kind of person at all.